Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to everybody to this 20th class on Brihadāranyaka Upanishad. We had taken a break for 6 weeks, and here we are resuming these Brihadāranyaka Upanishad classes. In this session, I am taking all of you to the second chapter again. In the second chapter, I should say, I'm taking you back to second chapter and fourth Brahmana again. In the fourth Brahmana of the second chapter, we already had considered 3 areas. You may remember we took a session on how Yajnavalkya announces that he is going away. He is going to take sannyasa, parivrajya. He divides all his property between Maitreyi and Katyayani. The older wife, Maitreyi, is very wise also. And she asks him a question: with all this wealth that you are giving to us, will we become immortal? And there was the strong statement by Yajnavalkya: Amritatvasya nashasti vittena. No hope for being immortal. No amount of wealth can end sorrow for good. And then follows an interesting dialogue between Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya. We took a second session in this Upanishad on this fourth Brahmana itself, where Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi, lots of things in this world come across as the source of happiness, but they are not. The real source of happiness is Atma. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. You and I have an ego, and all our energy is spent on pleasing the ego. And the inner truth of the ego is a bundle of memories, a bundle of false beliefs. If one can cut through the ego, one arrives at the pure self. So, that beautiful discussion on where does happiness come from is very significant. And in that mantra itself, the 5th mantra of the 4th Brahmana of the 2nd chapter, Adhyaya, we have Yajnavalkya pointing out the 3 well-known spiritual practices in the Vedanta, in Jnana Yoga, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Atmava are drashtavyaha, he announces, you must realize Atma. But what is the way? Atmava are shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. We saw this in a 3rd session among the 19 sessions that we had on Brihadāranyaka Upanishad. Now in the 4th session, that is this particular session, we are going to consider the mantra 6 of that very section, 2.4.6, and then see one more too. What is this about? This is to bring home to us the central teaching of all the Vedanta. The Vedanta is not meant to explain this world of names and forms. Rather, Vedanta is meant to help us see the one truth which appears as everything else. In fact, let me draw your attention quickly to the last line of the previous mantra. We are going to see mantra 6 now, but what was said at the end of mantra 5 by Yajnavalkya to Maitreyi, after talking about Shravana, Manana and Nidhyasana, he said, Darshanena, Shravanena, Matya means Mananena, Vijnanena, Idam Sarvam Viditam. If you were to see the Atma, the pure self, then you will know everything. Sarvam Viditam. Therefore, the connection to the mantra that we will now take up is to explain how, by knowing the pure self, Atma, everything becomes known. Generally, by knowing coffee, you do not know tea. If somebody who is very fond of coffee says to you, have coffee, then you have everything. It is as good as you have had tea, you have had sharbat, you have had some other drink. And that is not possible. By knowing coffee, you know coffee. That's about it. Therefore, while introducing this 6th mantra, which we will take up in a short while, Shankaracharya says, Anyasmin vidite, anyat viditam katam bhavati. By knowing Paris, how will you know Delhi? By knowing some man in Africa, how will you know some lady in Andhra Pradesh? So, anyasmin vidite, anyat katam viditam bhavati. If you take that question seriously, you will get into the crux of Vedanta. Because in the Vedanta it is said, the so-called things of the world, people of the world, beings of the world, phenomena of the world, so-called aspects of this created universe, none of them has any existence other than the pure self. If they had even an iota of independent existence, Paris has its own existence. It doesn't depend on Delhi. The man in Africa has his own existence. He doesn't depend upon a lady in Andhra Pradesh. Tea has its own existence. It doesn't depend upon coffee. But you cannot say that while A and B are things of the world and pure self. All things of the world, anything and everything. Why? Even the stage for everything to appear, Desha Kala, they are the stage. Desha and Kala are the stage on which the play of this universe goes on. And Desha and Kala have no existence of their own apart from the pure self. Therefore, let me read that too by Shankara. Nahi atma vyatirekena anyat kinchidasti. The deep truth of the Vedanta is atma vyatirekena, other than the pure self. Vyatireka means other. Nahi kinchidasti. which cannot be said about anything else. It's only with regard to Brahman, which is same as Atman, that we can say there is nothing other than Brahman. This is conveyed at many places. Sarvam khalu idam Brahma is the famous statement in the Chandogya Upanishad. Everything is Brahma. So, saying this, let us examine Mantra 6 of 2nd chapter, 4th section, 2, 4, 6. Let's take a look at the title slide for this session. The title slide just highlights the main message of couple of mantras that we have taken. The title slide says, as all of you are able to see now, all duality is actually superimposed. Like the entire snake is superimposed on the rope. The rope alone is true. Again, in the Chandogya, you have that famous statement, Mrittika ityeva satyam. Pots and pitchers, pails, and 100 things made of clay. All of them are clay only. All the vikaras, the various forms in which they appear, do not have their own independent existence. So when duality is said to be superimposed, what is meant is the non-dual Atma alone is the truth. So, idam sarvam yadayam Atma. That is the last 5 words. Idam sarvam yat ayam Atma. The last 5 words of the mantra 6, which we will presently see, are idam sarvam yat ayam Atma. Ayam Atma, this pure self about which Yajnavalkya had said in the previous mantra, O Maitreyi, you must do Shravana. Of what? Latest political development somewhere? No. Do Shravana regarding Atma. Do Manana, reflection, analysis, finding out how everything is said in a certain way. On what shall we do Manana? Should we do Manana on the budget that the finance minister presented on the floors of the parliament a couple of days ago? No. Do Manana on that very Atma which is taken up for Shravana. So that Atma is the only truth. That is Yad Ayam Atma, this Atma. That pronoun Ayam is important. Otherwise, some other Atma somewhere might have a different meaning. For example, in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Uddhared Atmana Atmanam. He has used the word Atma, Atmana Atmanam. Neither of the two expressions, Atmana and Atmanam, refers to the pure self. With your mind made cooperative by some sadhanas, lift your mind. Pretty much the word Atma there means the mind. Your own mind can be your best friend. Your own mind can be your worst enemy. So Atma means the mind over there. Somewhere else the Atma may mean the body also, depending on the context. But Ayam Atma, in the context of Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, which were recommended, it is not mind or body, it's not senses or pranas, it is the pure self. Yat Ayam Atma idam sarvam, everything. Let's take a look at the 6th mantra now. All the words And Upanishads have their own language, their own way of expressing, their own way of really speaking, training our conditioned mind to become unconditioned. So we see the sixth mantra in its details. In some sense, the mantra is a bit complex, but in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, you find a apparently long mantra. With patience, you get going with it. You find it has a lot of repetition. Let me read it for you. Brahmatam paradad yo anyatra atmano brahma veda. Then kshatram tam paradad yo anyatra atmanah kshatram veda. Lokastam paraduhu yo anyatra atmano lokan veda. Devastam paraduhu yo anyatra atmano devan veda. So, looks like repetition. So, if you understand one of them clearly, rest of the lines become easy. Bhutanitam paraduhu. See, paradad and paraduhu are just singular and plural, no other difference. Bhutanitam paraduhu yo anyatra atmano bhutani veda. Sarvam tam paradad yo anyatra atmanah sarvam veda. So 6 times paradad or paraduhu is mentioned. What does it mean? Oust, reject, throw out something. So let's examine the meaning of the first line here. Brahma refers to the Brahmana Jati, people in the good old society of India, had a certain community ever engaged in study of Veda, teaching Veda, and so on. Kshatriya is a community very much engaged in administration, in warfare, in martial arts, and so on. So that is an example. That is not the main topic here. Chaturvarnya is not the topic. But taking a certain setting, if the so-called Brahmana, yaha anyatra atmano, the meaning is, if somebody looks at all the Brahmanas, okay, these are Brahmanas, they are studying Vedas, but they are different from Atma. Then the Upanishad warns us, anyone who dares say that Brahmanas are other than this Atma of which Ravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana were talked of, they would be rejected by the Brahmanas. In other words, their relation will get bitter. Same way, let's say there is a Kshatriya and he looks at his own clan, all the Kshatriyas. And I would add, he may at times praise them, he may at times find fault with them, but either way, you scratch the surface, you ask him, what do you think, on a deeper level, who are these Kshatriyas? He says, in the Upanishads, we talk about Atma, and that is what we should finally realize. These Kshatriyas, they are different. If he makes Kshatriyas different and the Atma to be known different, the Upanishad laments. That is such an error. So therefore, Atmanaha anyatra kshatram veda tam kshatram paradat. His own community will distance themselves with him. Same way, lokaha paraduhu. All the worlds, Swargaloka, Narakaloka, and so many celestial, semi-celestial regions, they would reject a person who regards them as different from Atma. Now you may find this language a little unfamiliar. Let me make it easy for you. What is meant is, if you look at a flower vase made of clay, and you know a lot about the flower vase, but you have forgotten that it is clay, then there's a fundamental error. You may know about the height of the flower vase, the diameter of the flower vase, the weight of the flower vase. You know 100 things about the flower vase, but when on a deeper level someone asks, what is it made of? It's made of something. Is it clay? No, not clay. So you make the flower vase, which is made of clay, different from clay. That's a fundamental error. I find these lines very beautiful. It's actually meant for very advanced students of Vedanta. As you and I meet different people, different communities, different nationalities, as you and I take the newspaper and realize somebody has won a gold medal, somebody else was put behind bars, jailed. You know what? If you and I have done Brahma Chintana, while we take note of somebody was awarded a gold medal and somebody was jailed, we take note of it, we put it in its proper place. But not even for a moment we would make the mistake that the person who went up and took the gold medal is different from the pure self. He's not. The person who went to jail is not different from the pure self. Therefore, Sri Ramakrishna used to tell a story. There was some saint, it seems, and he went with some students to some forest area, and then the students went in some direction, the guru was going in some direction. By then, a mad elephant came and took the guru, lifted him and threw him to the side. And after some time, the Shishyas came and picked him up. And they brought him to the ashram. They treated him. Slowly, he regained his consciousness. And the disciple gave him some water to drink. That was such relief for the teacher. He took some water. And then, because the students were all away when the elephant had thrown him, or I think in another version it is some wicked man comes and beats up this guru. Let's take that version. Some wicked man comes in that forest area and thrashes the guru. So the students were far away at that time. When they came and they saw their guru unconscious, they took him to the ashram, treated. Now comes the main part of the story, the parable narrated by Sri Ramakrishna. The students asked, Guruji, tell us, who did this to you? We will take care of him. We will teach him a lesson. They are angry. And the guru, who was a Brahmanishta, he did not make this mistake. Atmanaha anyatra Brahma Veda, to think of Brahmins as different from the pure self, to think of Kshatriyas as different from pure self. You may add Vaishya, Shudra, women, children, any category. To think of anything as a second entity. Over there is Brahma and this is another entity, Dvaita. That is not acceptable. So in this story, the last line is when students ask him, tell us who hurt you, who injured you. The guru, even now suffering from physical pain, thirsty and sipping some water, was such a Brahmanishta. He said, I'll tell you, the same hands that are giving me water now had beaten me up 2 hours ago. The same hands that are giving me water had beaten me. Will anyone believe this? But Brahmanishta is like that. Good and bad are both expressions of Brahma. The gold medalist and the criminal are both expressions of Brahma. If you say the gold medalist can be Brahma, but I don't think this hardcore criminal is Brahma, then you have a long way to go in Brahma Vidya. Yad yad asti tat sarvam Brahma eva. Sarvam khalvidam Brahma. Therefore, there is the fourth line. Devastam paraduhu yaha anyatra atmano devan veda. The standard prose order here would be yaha devan atmanaha anyatra veda. Whoever looks at devas, gods, with small g as the letter over there, whoever looks at gods other than him, other than the pure self, he would get distanced from gods. Gods would reject him. I don't ask, some gross question. How will gods know? How will gods punish him? How will they know him? How he sees them? These are things that do not require somebody else to know. It is like Swami Chinmayananda used to say, a man is not punished by sin. Man is not punished for his sin. A man is punished by his sin. When one entertains a sinful thought, when one speaks sinful words, when one commits sinful acts, to be punished for those is by external agencies. They find out, they punish him. The law of the land catches him. But when we say a man is not punished for his sin, but by his sin, Swamiji had a great insight in it. His thought, his word, his action were right away in disharmony with what he truly is. He is divine. And sinful acts, sinful thoughts, sinful words are a deviation from a sense of being divine. When you know who you are, you cannot commit sin. Or when you think of yourself as poor and are angry with rich people, you will go after some rich person and you may even kill him. So that is the insight here. Devaha paraduhu, lokaha paraduhu, kshatram tam paradat, brahma tam paradat. What it meant is, once spiritual error gets into our head, wherever we go, the system will reject us. The system has its own dynamics. The system has its own laws. Someone who has Brahmanishta is protected by the system. Someone who slips from Brahmanishta is punished. Rest of the mantra says, Bhutani tam paraduhu, yaha anyatra atmano bhutani veda. The prose order once more would be, yaha bhutani atmanaha anyatra veda, stam bhutani paraduhu. Whoever regards bhutas could be a reference to Panchabhuta, or it could refer to living beings in a larger spectrum. Yaksha, Kinnara, all of them come inside that. So if you have that division, now to make matters simple, I may even give you an example. You are mother and father of 3 children. You love one child more because she is good in studies. You love another child less because he is not good in studies. Then this mantra applies. You are in error, spiritual error. The one who is doing well at school and the other who is not doing well at school are both divine, both Brahma. Of course, deal with them in a Vavahara in a different way. Somebody is weak in mathematics, don't ask her to solve mathematical issue. That is vyavahara. But in your heart, if you have the same love for high performers and low performers, the tragedy of the so-called human civilization is even today, even in what they call meritocracy. United States is often called a meritocracy. And generally we applaud. Anyone who has talent is rewarded. It's a land of opportunities. All that is a half-truth. Because seeing talent and rewarding them, and seeing no talent and keeping at a distance, this reward and punishment is spiritually erroneous. When you and I are desirous of making some money and we have some talent, let's say I'm a wonderful singer and I go to a country like America, I sing in various towns, I collect a lot of money, I'll be happy. I'll praise this meritocracy. But my own younger brother might not be having any talent and he gets rejected. He suffers from various complexes, fears, and so on. And I may not open my eyes to that sad fact for a long time. One day it may occur to me, oh my, I was carried away by my talent and what I could earn with my talent, and I was riding a high wave. I hardly paid attention. I had no time for this brother. If I were truly more evolved spiritually, even as I was pursuing my success, I could have done something. Now it's too late. In some families, you find a less talented brother or sister goes into depression, develops some peculiar, strange, unhealthy outlook. He or she begins to hate everybody and so on. I need not give examples. So, you know what Brahmanishta is? Brahmanishta is the healthiest outlook possible in human life. And unless we have a healthy outlook, not talent and you make money, some other skill and you become a leader, those are all, bhuktaye natu muktaye. Therefore, developed countries, affluent countries also have their own agony, their own suffering. They may win wars and they may achieve very many things. They may put man on the moon, but all that has some glitter and glamour. It doesn't mean the citizens are divine, contented, selfless. I am no social scientist, but I would go to the extent of saying meritocracy does not ensure piety, sadhutva in the citizens. On the contrary, meritocracy promotes so much of competition, so much of insecurity in a lot of people who are not able to make it to certain goal. It's a chaos of another kind. Where merit is not regarded, where people are given opportunities on some other criterion, it's a chaos of one kind. But meritocracy creates a chaos of another kind. Brahmanishta alone can help individuals, and through such individuals, their surroundings will have a touch of true human dignity, true human excellence. All that comes from this mantra. Sarvam tam paradad yaha anyatra atmanaha sarvam veda. Whoever regards anything and everything other than Atma, that means he, because of his spiritual ignorance, created a duality, right? He created a duality where really there is no duality. I see a good, talented painter, and somebody else, he says he paints, but he is not doing a good drawing. If I begin to make a hero of this painter and I try to I begin to make this untalented person as though he's a burden on the earth, that's a big spiritual error. Brahma Vidya doesn't encourage it. Brahma Vidya comes down on it. So, moment we create a psychologically created duality, then sarvam tam paradat. I may get medals, I may earn wealth, I may become famous, I may become president or prime minister somewhere, whatever. But I would rob myself, I would deny to myself the peace of Brahmanishta. That is what is called sarvam tam paradat. The mantra ends with beautiful words. Idam Brahma, idam Kshatram, ime loka, ime deva, imani bhutani. 6 items. Brahma, Kshatram, Lokaha, Devaha, Bhutani, and Sarvam. If you include Sarvam also, 6 items. And the punchline which we took in our title slide says, if you have Brahma Drishti, the Nobel Prize winners may not have Brahma Drishti. Generally they do not. Oscar winners, Olympic gold winners, and Wimbledon winners, Grand Slam winners. So there are so many whom we regard eminent, whose names are put in the so-called Hall of Fame. Some places right on the sidewalk, there are some tiles with their name in that famous city. It's in honor of them. This mad, mad world praises, honors, felicitates people of talent and turns a blind eye towards people having no talent. Don't take that as the summum bonum of life. That is a very inferior outlook. Therefore, saints and sages are not at all carried away by somebody getting a prize, somebody getting a recognition. Because that's a very superficial, petty affair. But to see that, one requires Brahmanishta. So what does the Upanishad say? Imani bhutani idam sarvam atma eva. Never make the mistake of looking at anybody, anything, any place as anyatra, other than Atma. Atma alone is. Let's see the English translation by Swami Madhavananda. That Brahmana oasts, or oosts, I think, oosts, slights, one who knows him as different from the self. The Brahmana. The Kshatriya oosts, one who knows him as different from the self. That means knowing someone as different from the self leads to his or her ooster. I check the pronunciation, ooster or ouster. Throwing out, ouster. Thank you. Ouster. He was ousted. We are not talking of being ousted from some team, some selection board, the selection process. That is the level of the world. Here we are talking of, in Brahmanishta, you feel one with the world. The world is one with you. You see yourself in the world and you see the world in yourself. As Ishavasya has the mantra. Yassa sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam tato na vijugupsate. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva bhut vijanataha tasya ko mohaha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyata. So those who make the slightest difference between others and themselves, or between A and B, between one person and another person, slightest difference, as Taittiriya Upanishad has an expression, udaram antaram kurute, ut aram antaram, even a slight difference. If a mother says, I love both my sons, but they are away. I'll tell you in confidence. I love my younger son slightly more. Why? Again, the mother looks around. The son should not hear this. So she says in confidence, I love the younger son because he earns more. Oh! So your spirituality has gone through the winds. Because money has become the criterion. When money and power and talent and fame, name, even piety, virtue holds you in its way, then though otherwise, you regard virtue. You say it's not wealthy, but my second boy is better in his character. Well, relatively it may be better. But you know what? In Brahmanishta, your wisdom goes as Nachiketa's question says, Anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat. It's difficult to understand. Oh, does it mean we have to treat equally a liar and a person who always tells the truth? Don't be in a hurry to interpret this Vedantic vision. In the Vyavahara, you will be careful about the person who tells lies. And you will opt for a person who tells the truth. But if you are a Brahmanishta, that knowledge that this person is prone to tell lies, that person generally tells the truth, will not prevent you from being equally compassionate. Oh, I must tell you, there was an interesting short story. A saint of very high consciousness was walking on the road, and suddenly by the roadside he sees that a stout, well-built man was beating a lean person, and the lean person was suffering. Lean and weak and impoverished person. And the stout, well-built man was thrashing the weak person. And the saint stood there and was aghast, seeing what was happening. And the saint just stays there. Why then some others come and separate the two and save that weak person from being beaten more? They save him. They provide him some care. Then they look at the saint who was standing there at a distance. The story is a bit difficult to understand. We listen carefully. The people who saved the weak man from being beaten say to the saint, we know you. You are a very wise person. You are a very pious person. We know you. People regard you very high. How come you didn't do anything? Perhaps this is one of those Anthony de Mello stories. In some of the stories that Anthony de Mello wrote in his collections, some subtlety is involved. You have to read very carefully. So when the saint was asked, why were you not doing anything? We had to come and do this. Why could you separate the two? Why couldn't you at least tell the stout man, don't beat this weak fellow? Now comes the, flashpoint. The saint says, I know. Well, maybe I should have done it. But you know what? I was looking at both of them and my mind had a very strange question. I was wondering who needs more help. Does the weak man need help or does the stout man need help? Beautiful story it is. See, physically speaking, the weak man needs help. He was being beaten. But the saint is seeing from such a height, for him, while the physical suffering is a serious matter, this stout man, so well-built and so on, indulging in that kind of act is such a terrible thing. So he was feeling tremendous, my God, I should help this strong man come out of this wickedness. Think about it. Therefore, in summary, it is said, in a scenario of exploitation, the exploiters are as much to be sympathized with as the exploited. The exploited perhaps have been put to disadvantage. Their money is taken, their goods, the land is taken away, their rights are taken away, etc. The exploiter's head is taken away. The exploiter's sense of right and wrong is gone. The exploiter's sensitivity is gone, which is also a very serious issue, right? So all the significance comes here. Sarvam yadayam atma. It in no way means, next time you see a strong, well-built person beating a weak fellow, you should try to imitate the saint. Oh, who needs help now? That will be very stupid. This doesn't mean what you should do, what you should not do. See, jnana goes to a certain level and it's operating on a very different level. You should not translate Vedanta jnana by a one-to-one manner to actions to be done, actions to be avoided. There's a subtlety over there. All right. We will quickly see another mantra and I will be a little brief on that. Let's read now the 7th mantra. Only 2 mantras we have taken in this and for this session. So, Sayata dundubehe hanyamanasya. A drum is being beaten. Some people are beating a drum. Various forms of sound, music are coming out. Dundubehe hanyamanasya. And there is so much sound, unless some expert with sharp ear comes, most of us will not be able to recognize all the details of the secondary sounds. But the primary sound, what's going on is the drum beat is being heard. Na bahyan shabdan shaknuyat grahanaya dundubestu grahanena dundubi aghatasya va shabdo grihitaha. So let's read Madhavananda's translation for this. Swami Madhavananda of Ramakrishna Mission says, as when a drum is beaten, one cannot distinguish its various particular notes, but they are included in the general note of the drum or in the general sound produced by different kinds of strokes. To make matter simple, let me tell you, that's where Adi Shankara's Bhashya also comes very handy. He explains the words, then comes to the crux of the matter. Comes to the crux of the matter at such depth, it's at once a line that promotes meditation, I tell you. He says in his commentary on this Dundubi, first of all, he says, Chinmatra anugamat sarvatra chit swarupata eva gamyate. If you rise to a certain higher Vedanta understanding, you see pure consciousness alone and particular forms of knowledge lose their importance. I will quote one more line from Adi Shankara. He says, Prajnana vyatirekena swapna jagaritayoho na kaschid vastu visheshaha grihyate. Think of state of dream, swapna avastha. Think of state of waking, jagrada avastha. In swapna jagaritayoho, a brahmanishta sees prajnana only. Prajnana is prajnanam Brahma. It's a pure awareness. In other words, a seer of truth holds on to Brahma Darshana, and I would hasten to add, it's not that he is completely deaf or dumb or blind to the details, but the details certainly take a back seat. He is so tuned, he or she, this Brahmanishta lady or man, so tuned to Brahma Drishti, Sarvam Brahma. Then Vyavahara happens, it happens out of common sense. Suppose you see two people, one has had a wonderful meal, another is hungry. The Brahmanishta sees both of them as Brahman, but feeds the hungry. Two people come to him, one has no clothes at all torn clothes, another is well-dressed. Brahmanishta does not look at the well-dressed boy as more divine. There is more God here, and there is less God in the person with torn clothes. That would be a terrible error. There is God, suppose you are a Krishna Bhakta. There is Krishna in this well-dressed boy. There is Krishna, same Krishna, not 10% less. In the other boy, having torn clothes. But then, will Brahmanishta just say that and stand aloof? No. His Vyavahara would spontaneously be in line with noble values. He will say to the, or she will say to the boy with torn clothes, hey, what happened? Who tore your clothes? Come here, I will give you some new clothes. You see? Therefore, Dundubhi, let's say this and complete today's, this evening session in India, morning session in the West. The Brahmanishta sees the Brahmatva, everyone is Brahma, is primarily taken note of. Just as the basic sound of Dundubi, the drum, is cognized, taken note of. And all others are included in it. The sentence, Swapna Jagaritayoho Nakaschid Vastu Visheshaha Grihyate Prajnana Vyatirekena. Prajnanam eva satyam. Brahma eva satyam. This has such wonderful significance. Let me conclude saying, in a language of psychology, this is what is the ending of judgmentalism. All immorality, all partiality, all injustice, all vulgar behavior is the result of judgmentalism. When there is no judgmentalism, the highest virtue, highest morality, highest human excellence blossom, bloom over there. That is this. Catch hold of the Dundubi's main sound, drum's main sound, and do not be confused or carried away or anything else by the details. You and I get carried away by details. Somebody being well dressed, somebody being coming in an expensive Mercedes car. That is lack of Brahmanishta. We are not to judge somebody, but we have to examine. Did I get carried away by her Mercedes? Did I get carried away by his some very expensive watch that he was wearing? And nowadays, the expensive iPhone 12 has come, I think. 13 has come. Sure. Did you notice that Mataji who came to our ashram was carrying iPhone 13? Did you see? Suppose it becomes a big issue for you. Then that all Matajis will reject you to use this language. Devaha paraduhu, lokaha paraduhu, kshatram paradat, brahma paradat. That is said. You distinguish women based on what phone they use. then all women will reject you. That's the peculiar language used here. I have already interpreted it. I have already explained what it means. It's not that they will ask you to go away, they will oust you. What happens is that faulty, that erroneous perception of yours, where known to others or unknown to others, you have attached value to what phone they carry, what car they come by, etc. That will cause such disharmony between the world and you. You will not be at peace. The peace of Brahmanishta requires ending of judgmentalism. Take note, this person has an iPhone 13. Take note, oh, that other lady was well dressed, but her phone was ordinary, not a smartphone at all. Take note of it. Nobody says don't take note of it. But if you internally are excited about one and make a face at another, there's a problem with you, a spiritual problem with you. There is a lack of absence of abidance in the divinity of your own. Vedanta is meant to recognize our divinity and stay in that divinity. Unless we do that, of what use is going on reading or teaching and so on. Om Namah Paramarashibhyo, Namah Paramarashibhya.